How's it going, everyone? College Lefty, and in this video I'm going to be ranking the top 10 players in MLB The Show at each position, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, this has probably been the toughest video for me to make throughout the entire year. I have made some significant adjustments to my previous top 5 rankings list, so you will see some players in different spots, some players that I also missed. So we're going to start it off with the top 10 catchers, in my opinion. And some of these guys do have secondary positions. I think these guys that I have ranked in the top 10 are usable in their secondary positions, at least most of them. But I have the top 3 catchers as Joe Mauer, Craig Biggio at number 2, who's a brand new one. I think has a lot of value there. And then at number 1, Mike Napoli. If you're using a created player right now, I think the created player at the catcher position gives you the most value. But the creative player at any of these positions would definitely be the best player at that position. With that said, we have a couple new cards. We have Cody Bellinger. We have Justin Morneau. I think Willie Stargell is also a good option at first base. But some of these guys at the bottom of the first baseman list, I would probably platoon with another right-handed first baseman or a right-handed guy that has first baseman as a secondary position. Matt Carpenter, you're going to see a couple times on this list. I think Matt Carpenter has an incredible swing in the game, and he has a lot of secondary positions. Also a free card, so adds a little bit of value to it. I have some of these Player of the Months and collection rewards ranked at the end here. Austin Riley, to me, I think is the number 2 first baseman, probably a top 5 card at each of his positions. Babe Ruth is my go-to first baseman. I'd like to include Corey Seager in this list. I definitely had Tim Anderson ranked too high in the last list. Justin Foscue, I think, is extremely glitchy in MLB The Show. He has a really quick swing. Josh Jung is on the list. I'd probably use him at second base. Although he isn't a 5-tool player, he's still a very good card. I did not include Jorge Polanco in my top 5, but I think he's arguably top 5. Right? Matt Carpenter, you might have him a little higher in terms of second baseman. I'm going for more of an all-around second baseman here as we get into some more 5-tool types of players. But that Matt Carpenter is probably a better hitter than most of these guys in the top 5. Ketel Marte, I think, it just speaks for himself. I've been talking about Ketel Marte throughout the entire year. Chase Utley is my number 2 second baseman, and then, of course, Jackie Robinson is my number 1 second baseman. You might have those two flip-flopped. You might think Honus Wagner is an interesting pick, but I think he has a lot of value at shortstop and third base with that speed, good contact, lower power, kind of like Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson's my number 9 shortstop now instead of number 2. I had him way too high in the last one. Jorge Polanco at number 8. Andres Gimenez, I think this card's pretty good. You might also use him, at second base. I could have put him in the top 10 at second base, I think. But at number 6, we have Bryson Stott. I still think he's a really good shortstop. Xander Bogaerts probably in the top 5. Javier Baez, I missed him in the last one. He's definitely a lot better than I was thinking. I really liked his card in MLB The Show 18, though. Elly De La Cruz, I have ranked a little bit higher because he is a switch hitter. But if you're playing on Hall of Fame or Legend, you might have Javier Baez, Ketel Marte, Dansby Swanson higher than that Elly De La Cruz. That Elly De La Cruz is an all-star goon, and I think that adds some value to the average player in this game. At number 10, we have Jose Ramirez, kind of an interesting pick. A lot of people like that card. I don't like his swing as much as I have in last year's game or even the year before. Evan Longoria is another one I didn't really include in any previous lists. He is a pretty good card, but I'd rather prefer, some of these other third basemen, probably that Matt Chapman, maybe Honus Wagner, Miguel Cabrera. I still like this Brett Beatty card. I think this Brett Beatty is extremely good. Manny Machado might be in the top 5. I could also put him at shortstop, even first base as well. Maybe even include him in the bench bat section. I will have a couple bench bats at the end of the video. I think Austin Riley is the number 2 third baseman behind George Brett, but you might flip-flop these guys as well. If you're looking for a righty, you might go with Austin Riley. If you're looking for a lefty, you might go with George Brett. I wanted to include Aaron Judge on the list, but I think there are plenty of better outfielders in the game to choose from. At number 10, we have Vladimir Guerrero. Jason Dominguez might have been ranked a little too high. I think I missed out on Cedric Mullins in previous ranking videos. I think some of these guys are kind of in the same category. Some people mentioned Brian Reynolds in the last one. I think he's a top 10 outfielder. You could probably put him in the top 5. Same type of thing with Julio Rodriguez. He might have been ranked a little too high. I think the home run derby, Julio's a little better. Bryce Harper, to me, is a top 5 outfielder. If I didn't have, Andrew McCutchen or some of these other top 5 outfielders, I might go with Bryce Harper. If I didn't have Juan Soto, I would definitely be using Bryce Harper in right with the current squad that I have. But I'm going with Julio Rodriguez at number 2 and Andrew McCutchen, of course, at number 1, even though I haven't done that great with that card in the 2 games I played with them. But anyway, for this list, I'm going to be going with 20 starting pitchers, just because I really think starting pitching is extremely valuable in this year's game. You might disagree with a few of these selections, as I have some of the overalls kind of intertwined, right? We have some 92 guys ranked ahead, some 95 overall players, but this is just personal preference. A lot of these guys on the list, in fact, have meta pitches or have, outlier certain things that I think are extremely useful when pitching. I mean, honestly, you could use any of these pitchers in the top 20. If you know how to pitch with them, they could be some of the best pitchers in the entire game. Some of these guys with lower K per 9 will certainly take a hit on the harder difficulties because it's much easier to put the ball in play, to foul pitches off. Some of these cards like Greg Maddux or Al Leiter, some more of these finesse type of pitchers, would be better on Legend, of course. This Daniel Espino you might have ranked a little bit higher just because of his hits in K per 9, especially if you go up against someone who has a tough time with outlier, right? It depends on the hitter you're facing. It depends on the player you're going up against. At the plate in the game as well, right? And I might have ranked Sandy Alcantara and Corbin Burns maybe a little too high. I like Bobby Miller a lot still. I think he is arguably, top 5 pitcher. And in some cases, I might prefer his control over someone like Nolan Ryan. So you might even have him ranked right behind Randy Johnson. But I wanted to include a variety of players. Some of the guys are in the same spot as the previous ranking, and we have some different guys as well. One relief pitcher that I did not include just because I wanted to keep the video somewhat short. I missed out on a few players, but Chad Green is definitely one of the better relief pitchers in the game that I don't have in my current ranked season squad, but I would use him if one or two of my other relievers was tired, right? I would just kind of swap them out for a game and then hopefully get that energy back for maybe someone like Yohan Duran in the next one. But here in the top 5, I really wanted to go with the main 2 lefties, my go-to lefties in Gregory Soto and Zach Britton, and then my go-to righties, which are probably Yohan Duran, Jorge Lopez, Steve Cishek, and Raleigh Fingers. But I had to include some lefties in the mix there as well. Now we're getting into some bench bats. These are some guys that I think have a lot of value on the bench. Primarily guys that hit one side a little bit better than the other, guys that might have active quirks, guys that I don't feel like I could use out in the outfield based off of my current team, or guys that I couldn't use out in the infield either based off of my current team. So I wanted to include some lefties and then some righties. I don't know if these are in any particular order, but Giancarlo Stanton is definitely one of my go-to bench bats. I mean, I use some of the guys I have ranked in the top 5 at their respective positions as some of my bench players just because I can't find room for some of these guys I have included as bench bats or guys that I would probably use as bench bats if I wasn't using some of those top 5 players or guys that I would prefer. But that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you think about my top 10 rankings at each position. Until next time, peace out.